Today is the beginning of Operation Apocalypse Z in Call of Duty Black Ops 4, and with this operation, the mainstay of it is zombies. Zombies in Blackout, zombies maps in multiplayer, and robots as specialist characters. Not a zombie. But today we got introduced to our newest specialist character, the man, the myth, the robot, Reaper. Now, this is not the first time we've actually seen Reaper in the Call of Duty franchise. The first time we saw him was back in Call of Duty Black Ops 3, once again as a robot that was fighting alongside the other specialist characters. His two abilities were Scythe and Psychosis. Scythe was an arm that turned into a minigun, and Psychosis was a brain-altering ability that made his enemies think he turned into multiple robots. Now, in this game, he has some different abilities, but he was also introduced to Black Ops 4 earlier as an archetype, aka just a Blackout character. Now, with the update to Reaper, he's looking really thick, and on top of that, he has some different abilities as well. Today, what we are going to be doing is talking about both of Reaper's abilities in Black Ops 4, going through, breaking them down, and explaining how they work. We're also going to look at some little intricate details that you may not have known, and interesting ways that you are actually able to use these abilities. This is going to be an entire breakdown of Reaper as a specialist character, looking at everything you need to know about him. Now, as I mentioned in the previous video today, I've been loving the support on the channel, but still only 12.8% of people who are watching my videos actually subscribe to the channel. So if you like what you see here, you come out and check out all my videos, and you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing with your life? Click that subscribe button down below. Also, if you want to be notified whenever I upload a video, make sure you hit that bell icon so you are notified. But without further ado, let's talk about the new and improved and thicker Reaper. And while we're talking about how thick the new Reaper is, I think a good place to start is with the Scythe. The Scythe is his new-ish weapon that he once again had in Black Ops 3. In Black Ops 3, his hand turned into a machine gun. However, in Black Ops 4, he pulls out a giant minigun. It isn't attached to his body in any way, but it is a big, huge, thick with 5 Cs minigun. Now, as far as how this minigun actually works is there's two ways to fire it. If you're firing it from the hip, it fires relatively slowly at 350 RPM. However, you still do a ton of damage as it takes only about 2 bullets to actually down an enemy. However, if you actually go ahead and aim down sights, you'll pull up some armor in front of you and your fire rate will go up drastically to about 600 RPM. So it almost doubles the fire rate of the weapon. The downside to actually aiming down sights is you as a character, you actually move around a lot slower. Now, the downside to this weapon that doesn't really get shown here is that when you shoot this weapon, it actually takes a second to ramp up and start shooting. It has a very long sprint out time, if you want to call it that. And because of that, a lot of the time, your enemies will get a jump on you and kill you before you get 2 bullets out of the gun. So the best advice I can give based off of that is when you're using this and you know some enemies are going to be around the corner, start actually firing the weapon before you see them. What this will do is it will take that second to ramp up, and then you'll be able to kill them extremely quickly because of that 2-bullet kill. This is an incredibly powerful specialist weapon. There's just a little bit of a learning curve to figure out how to use it properly. Another really cool thing about this weapon is it very strongly counters Torque. If you're actually playing and run into Torque and he has his barbed wire and barricade up, the Scythe absolutely shreds through it. It only takes about 3 or 4 bullets to go through the barbed wire and only about 8 or 9 bullets to go through the actual barricade. So if you see him and his stuff is there, you can very easily take down his equipment and on top of that, take out Torque very quickly. Now, even though the Scythe is big, it still can't counter Ajax's shield. In fact, Ajax's shield is a little bit of a counter to the Scythe because with the Scythe, you move a little bit slower and Ajax can very easily get around you or just shoot you with his pistol. That being said, though, the one thing that the Scythe absolutely shreds through is score streaks, especially ground-based score streaks. As you can see, he tears through the sentry gun with no problem whatsoever. The Mantis goes down easily. Now, it does work on aerial score streaks, but not quite as quickly. As you can see, the Sniper's Nest takes much longer to actually destroy. However, when we actually get into something that's more stationary, like the Strike Team, you can actually easily take out the Strike Team before they end up dropping in. Now, the one thing it can't kill is the AC-130. As it turns out, the bullets actually despawn before they actually make it to the AC-130. So the Scythe is not a counter to the AC-130 whatsoever. But pretty much every other score streak, including the UAV, are taken out easily by it. Reaper's next ability is an interesting one. It's no longer psychosis like in Black Ops 3, but something new called a Radar Shroud. And technically what it is a stationary UAV jammer. What it does is you shoot it similar to a sensor dart, but what happens is that it blocks the UAV in a circular radius that is quite large on the entire map. And if you're playing something like Team Deathmatch and 2 people are playing as Reaper, you can almost cover the entire map simply by using these things. So no point in using a counter UAV when you can just use this. So the question from here is, what exactly does the Radar Shroud protect against? So first of all, when you shoot it, it actually protects everyone on your team within that radius. And the main thing that it protects against is the fog of war. So no longer will you show up on the minimap within that radius from your enemy's fog of war. Now, on top of that, it also counters UAVs. So if you have a UAV sweep going and enemies are within their shroud, they will not show up on the UAV. Similarly, if you are using a sensor dart, which normally makes your enemies show up on a UAV with a UAV ping, once again, the Radar Shroud protects the enemy team from that sensor dart as well. Now, there are some counters to the Radar Shroud, one of which is the Vision Pulse. So if you're playing as Recon, you use your Vision Pulse and they are in their Radar Shroud, they still show up on your Vision Pulse. Similarly, with the Hawk drone, you can fly that up in the air and the enemies will still show up on the radar if they are in the Shroud. Now, the one that surprised me the most is acoustic sensors. So even though you may not be able to see them on the radar with a UAV ping, if you're using acoustic sensor, you can still see the direction that your enemies are in. Now, the other thing that I personally wanted to test with the Radar Shroud is, does it protect you from AI-controlled score streaks? So this could include something like the Sentry Gun, the Mantis, and what I did is test it against the Mantis, shot the Radar Shroud against the wall, and as it turns out, the Mantis still targets you just as quickly. In fact, in this situation, I was even using cold-blooded, and it still targeted me after a short period of time. So no, the Radar Shroud does not protect you from any sort of score streaks. So what are my thoughts on Reaper? So first of all, to start with the Scythe, I like it. I like what they did with it. I think it makes sense, and I think it's pretty easy to counter. If your enemies are pre-firing at you with the Scythe, you simply got to run away. However, if you're able to get the jump on them, you can kill them faster than the Scythe can kill you because of the spin-up time that the minigun actually has. So I think they actually did a relatively decent job in balancing it. Now, once people get used to it and good at using it, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out down the road, but as of right now, I think it's pretty decent. The second thing, the Radar Shroud. This one I find a little bit more annoying. When you're playing Team Deathmatch and 2 players can choose the same character, like I said, on the small maps, you can pretty much cover the entire map in Radar Shroud as long as you and the other person playing Reaper are actually plan it out and pick the spots that you put it carefully. Now, the argument to this being overpowered or not is that you can also very easily kill them, especially if you have Engineer on. The Radar Shroud is actually quite large and easy to see, so you can destroy it pretty easily if your enemies are actually using it. So I'm kind of torn whether or not I like it or hate it. It's very frustrating when you call in a UAV and the entire enemy team is within the Radar Shroud. Personally, the way I think I would balance it is I think I would make the radius of the Radar Shroud a little bit smaller, maybe enough to cover a room or 2 of a map, not big enough to cover an entire building. But all in all, my final thoughts on Reaper are this. I think Reaper has a pretty good spot within the game. He's not overly annoying and he's fun to play as, and that's really what you want as a specialist character. There's certain specialist characters within this game that every time I see them and every time their ability is used against me, I feel like 1, I just don't have a chance, or 2, it is very, very annoying. Some examples of this are Torque. Torque is super annoying to play against. Zero, when Zero destroys your score streaks, super annoying. Or something like Prophet's Seeker Drone that just kind of ruins the next gunfight you're going to get into, and 90% of the time you end up dying because of it. Those are frustrating specialist abilities that really take away from the game. Everything that Reaper has is good, but not annoying. At least in my opinion, that's the way it is. But guys, at this point, I want to leave it to you. What do you guys think of Reaper? Do you think he's a good addition to the game? Do you hate him? Is he super annoying? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. I gave you my opinion, and I'd love to hear yours. Also, if you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you could hit that like button. And as I said earlier in the video, if you like what you see here and want to stay up to date on all my videos, the best way to do so is make sure you hit that subscribe button and make sure you turn notifications on. But guys, as always, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace out.
Listen.